Hello and welcome to You Matter. Today we have a special guest named Jeremy Schulz. Jeremy has a very inspiring story that I think everybody should hear. I'm going to start out. I'm just going to hand this over to you, Jeremy. Tell me a little bit about yourself.
Hey, thanks for inviting me. So I am. I've been a professional drummer for the better part of 2 decades, and I've been playing. I've been playing for 3/4 of my life. I've been playing for about 36 years, and drumming. Drumming has been the foundation of my life. My mom got me started when I was young because it was a way for me to deal with my Tourette. I started really bad, and I had really gnarly Tourette, and I would get behind the drums and use it as a way to kind of communicate, kind of detach from the cruel world of being made fun of at school and yada yada. Right? I would come home and I would pretend like the snare drum was me and the toms were kids at school, and I'd make conversations behind my kit. And then as I got older and I got into high school, I found out that girls like guys in bands, right? So then I started taking the band thing seriously, and so I started finding my voice and how I fit in to the world, right? Which was drumming and music, right? I was in. They always had me in a special ed. Excuse me. They always had me in special ed at school, and because they didn't. Nobody really knew how to teach me.
That's right.
Like I was stuttering and hit the bottom of my shoe, and I had all these crazy tics, which I still deal with, but I'll tell you about how this plays out later. And so I got into adult life, right? Graduated high school and went up to Seattle, and I was in Seattle at a very magical time. I was part of the '90s grunge scene. Okay. And it was freaking amazing, man. And it wasn't until I was about 30 that my life really changed, and I met my mentor, this guy named Steve Smith, the owner of the Seattle Drum School. And I was going there, I was taking lessons, creatively I'd hit a plateau, right? And so I was just taking these lessons, and Steve was like, yo, we need like a rock and roll guy. Everybody here is jazz and you're so fired up, and so I want you to teach here. And here was my first opportunity to be a professional drummer, and I was like, hell no, I'm not doing that. There's no, I can't read music, in my mind. The way that I was conditioned is that, I'm not smart enough. You are in special ed, and so is what happens is a lot of public schools and a lot of teaching, they mold you, this is what you are. Go into adult life. You can't be more or less.
That's right.
Right. So I was, and I by this time I'm a full grown adult. I'm literally in my 30s, and I'm saying no way I can't. And Steve, he was like, what? Like he didn't. It was weird. As a mentor, he didn't allow it. He didn't even entertain it. He didn't sit down and tell me you could be this. He was like, I'm getting cards made, and you're just gonna do it.
That's great.
No, it was terrifying, and I can remember just being like borderline upset. And he's like, no, and so he got me teaching, and I was failing miserably. I couldn't read or write, and he was doing this 1-year program. And Steve said, I'm gonna help you go through the school. You're gonna have to pay me back, but you're gonna get your drum education.
Yeah.
So let's think about that. I'm gonna college. I'm gonna learn to read and write. It was as if I was gonna tell you right now, like, Ned, you're gonna be a nuclear physicist, right?
That's right.
Or a brain surgeon, and you're like, what? And you're gonna do it in 12 months. Anyways, fast forward 12 months later. Not only am I reading and writing, but I'm now doing studio gigs where I'm reading like charted music, right? Sight reading while I'm playing. I'm being able to transcribe music. And so Steve, like, this light bulb literally went off in my head of this, of it wasn't hard. Nobody had delivered that to me. I was like, what? And so I almost felt like I've been cheated, like I've been living this lie. Now let me back up. My mom, a very supportive family, like, oh, you could do everything, but that's kind of different, because that's more of a loving, thing, and you. It's not that you don't believe it, but you're always told that by your mom.
That's
so
right.
Here's this outside person that looked at me and was like, oh yeah, you could do it. So I started teaching. Steve taught me this method of slowing down, using mantras, right? He would have us sing our quarter note, da, da, da. And as what happened was it started changing my brain.
Okay.
Okay? So because I would have hours of singing, chit, 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 right? Somehow it worked out my stuttering. Everything was really calm. So I started using this method on my students. And then fast forward 4 or 5 years into teaching, I started using this calm method into my students, and they started seeing results. I had, like, the older students on blood pressure medication and, like, anxiety, using this mantra style, what I call connection-based teaching.
That's right.
It started changing their world. So my career started getting more busy, and I was touring a lot. So I with the blessing of Steve, I ended up leaving the drum school, and I started my own school.
Yeah.
Okay, and it was out of my house up there in Seattle.
So how many years? What's the time frame for how long you stayed there till you open your own school?
So that was from 2007 to about 2013.
Wow.
About 2012. Yeah.
So that was like under 10 years. Your entire life, your 30 years prior, were kind of leading up to a path that wasn't very empowering and settling for maybe less than your true potential. But in that period, it totally spun around for you.
Yeah, and not only maybe settling for less. Absolutely settling up for less. It was like it was this empowerment light bulb went off. Because the way that Steve taught, I love it. He didn't get behind the drum set. So like you go and you take drum lessons now. There's like 2 drummers, and this guy plays and this guy plays. No, Steve would be all the way across the room. Say, just do this, and it's frustrating because you want that bit of training wheels, but he makes you work it out one piece at a time, and he's like anybody in the world can come in here and do this. You just gotta trust me. And then all of a sudden, by trusting him, you trust the process, and then you start trusting yourself. And then you're like, whoa, I did do that. How am I doing that? And it's so weird. It's just, and then it builds like this empowerment thing, and you watch yourself, it's just absolutely amazing, right? And then, and everything was on a good stride. And then I had another phase of my life where just like overnight, I got served a divorce from my wife, because my career was going. I wasn't home very much. So then everything just fell out. Boom. I lost my house, lost my school, lost everything. And so here I was. And the one thing that I didn't lose, that I now reflect on, is the power of this, of practice, of this internal connection.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and so, by the time I got told about the divorce with my wife, like 30 days later, like everything that I had was was gone. So I moved all my students online, and that's when I started Beats from the Core, which is my current company now, right? You know, my online drum lessons, and I realized that I built this 4 core principles of connection, discovery, empowerment, and positive self-esteem, and you know that's the 4 core pillars of all of my lessons. And so I started I moved everything online, and I did that because I told my students, I'm like, man, I need to travel. I got to get out of Seattle to get to my head. And my students actually liked this teaching through the internet even more, because they felt like it was more empowering, right? So I started getting more and more students online, and then I built this teacher training program. I realized that what I was doing was I wasn't just giving drum lessons. I was giving I was being a mentor. I was giving back, where, you know, emulating what Steve gave to me. So my teacher training program isn't just like how to teach drums or how to be a music teacher. It's how to be an actual full, complete mentor. And I didn't really think, I wasn't sure if anybody was going to dig it, but then I started selling it, and you could, you know, read the reviews, and I mean, it started, you know, like teachers, you know, would get that, and it would shift their whole way of thinking about not teaching notes, but teaching these 4 core principles of connection, discovery, empowerment, positive self-esteem, and really being able to make a difference in the world. This is what I'm supposed to be doing. So
see, and I think that's so fundamental, because no matter what you're doing for a job or in your doing hobbies, if you have those core principles that you're talking about, self-esteem, self-empowerment, you know, that's so important. It just blends over into everything you do. You know, I think about my job as I'm a tattoo artist, and you know, if I'm not in a good place mentally, and I'm not feeling a good self-esteem, I'm not the best to my clients. I don't have all of me to give, and I could see how that, you know, what you've created here is just an amazing package for people to become better drummers, but moreover to become self-empowered, and which will lend over to many things in their lives.
Right. And you know, listen, I love the distinction you just made. So like, check it out in my because that's so we forget that about how we show up. And in my teacher training program, I referred to there's this book written by this guy named David Wagner, okay, and it's all about being a day maker. So okay. my ex-wife, she worked for Aveda, you know, she was going through the Aveda Institute for hair school, right? And the one in Seattle was owned by these 2 guys, Gary and Manuel, and they had this thing, they had this core principle in their company called being a day maker, and they tell the story about one of the founders of Aveda. So this guy named David Wagner, he happened in the late 60s, early 70s. He's in the salon in New York. He was just tired, been swamped all day, and this old lady comes in, and she wanted to get her hair done, and he was already checked out. He's like, man, I don't want any more clients, right? And she's just a sweet old lady. She's like, very important. I want to get my hair done. And so he took like 5 minutes out. I was like, okay. And so he started doing her hair, and she started crying. And she was like, oh, man. And he was just feeling like, oh, man. So he gave her some little extra love. He went above and beyond his deal, and you know, did her like her makeup and made her feel beautiful, and then and he didn't charge her. He's like, man, this one is on me, right? So he gets this it was before email, so he gets this handwritten letter a couple weeks later, and this lady thanking him about going the extra mile, and that actually saved her life, because she wanted to have her hair and makeup done because she was going to go home and kill herself.
Oh my!
And she wanted to look. She wanted to be found looking pretty. And she said that she hadn't had anybody get like that one. It was unintentional, and it made her feel worthy. And because he gave her a hug and said, "Yo, come back." So it impacted him so much that he said that that he treats every single haircut as if it's going to save somebody's life. So in my book, I say when we're and for creative people in general, like tattoo artists, we're we have a different relationship to the world, right? So a lot of times, it's like you show up to lessons and whatever, maybe you band fight or whatever, and you bring that in, and then there's this kid that's sitting there and they're waiting to have a drum lesson, and you just spew all of your day on them, and they're like, I hate drums. Drums suck, right? But if you're a day maker, you're going to take 15 or 20 minutes before you start your lessons. You're going to clear all of that stuff out. You know why? Because what if this kid or woman or man or adult or executive, what if they're at their last wit's end, and they come in to the drum lesson, and you're able to deliver them connection, discovery, empowerment, and positive self-esteem, that it changed their whole week. What if they're driving home after that drum lesson and they're like, you know what? Maybe the fact that I'm getting fired and losing my house and all that, maybe that doesn't matter. That drum lesson was badass. Because you and I know it doesn't matter, dude. Screw all that stuff.
I have to be honest with you here. The whole story, I feel so emotional because I can relate to it so much about, and what it brings up for me is the importance of building connection with people, and how we never know how that's going to ripple out into the world, and I just hats off to you, my friend, for being a day maker. And this is going to be a new phrase for me. In my mind, I'm going to be a day maker. It's what a great story, and
right.
So much good stuff there that you're sharing.
Yeah, it really impacted me. It really impacted me in a big way, man. Showing up, and I realized too that it's a twofold. The connection part of my thing was of my 4 core principles of my teaching philosophy is when I started teaching this to my teachers, I realized that giving a connection to other people, that's the second half of it, is where it's lost, is we forget about the connection to ourselves, and forcing ourselves to be a day maker. We have to connect. That's why if my lessons start at 4, I start at 3. I take that first hour, and I do my rudiments, and I turn off my phone and yada yada, and I get connected, and then that's the reason why I have such a high retention rate with my students, 5, 6, 7 years of buying this like that, is not because I'm the baddest drummer on the planet. I'm pretty decent. I could do a badass drum solo, but that's not the reason why. It's because of how I show up, and they're like, we just had a talk off air about a certain situation with one of my students that's going through a hard time, and this our last drum lesson was vital to him because of how I showed up. I didn't show up with all of this baggage. So it's connection first. And then within the program, I teach them how they connect with themselves, right? You guide the student through connection, and then you leave them there, and you don't tell them what's next, right? If they're playing like a paradiddle, you just leave them there in this connection for a long time, and then the discovery happens. They're like, oh my God, did you know if you put your right hand over here, it's like a rhythm, right? Now you're like, hey, you made that discovery yourself. Now they have empowerment, and then as because you know your craft so well, you tell them to put it around here, and you tell them to do that, and then at the end of it, you give them the acknowledgement, and they leave with positive self-esteem.
That's awesome. Now,
that's a model.
Give me just a very brief summary of what you're doing currently. So, because I've been tuning into you and connecting for a few weeks now, and I'm really keen on telling a story about what you're interested in. In this You Matter interview, we're not going to go too deeply into that, but if you guys listening want to hear more about what Jeremy's up to, be sure to tune into our next episode, and it's about this amazing project that Jeremy has on the rise. So tell us just a brief teaser about what you're currently doing and what's going on in your life.
Okay, great. Yes. So, like I said, I hit my stride, and I found that, Beats from the Core it's much deeper than drum lessons, and like you said, we'll get into it in the next episode of the nuts and bolts. But I have this thing called Beats for a Cause, and I pick an organization that I align with, and I raise money for them. And this year, starting April 20th, I'm doing a pledge walk across America, and I'm going from the Brooklyn Bridge in New York City to the Sundial Bridge in Redding, California. And it's going to be roughly about 3,900 miles. I'm hoping to do it within 6 months, and I'm raising money for this foundation called Fight for the Forgotten. There's Justin Wren. He's a professional UFC fighter. He and his wife, they just sent me some shirts. He has this foundation that they do stuff for anti-bullying, and they raise water, like you said, they raise money for the Clean Water Initiative, and we'll get into that for the next episode. But yeah, I'm raising money for those guys, and I'm preaching the anti-bullying, and this perfectly aligns with You Matter, because this is self-care, right? We're building up ourselves, and we're also protecting those around us, and walking across America, it's the reason why, as I'm going from a bridge to a bridge.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, that in of itself is very symbolic. The point between going from bridge to bridge is kind of bridging this gap of this divide. Like, we can be different, we can have different views, we can look different, we can speak different, but we're not that much different. Whether
right.
We're a Republican or this or a Christian or so we can peacefully have differences and all of that, and we can come together as humans respectfully, and that's where the anti-bullying thing and the building each other up, and so walking from bridge to bridge is, I want us to be able to bridge that gap of this of the vitriol, of the disconnection, and we don't have to hate each other.
Yeah, I love that, Jeremy. I can't thank you enough for coming on to do this episode for You Matter. Thank you for tuning in, and if you'd like to know more about what Jeremy's up to, be sure to tune in to our next episode, and we're gonna go into much more detail about the foundation that he's raising money for and what he's up to. This guy is an inspiring guy, and I'll be sure to post some links on the Facebook page if you want to support his cause and support what he's doing. Thank you. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.